7 days, 5 games, 14 world records, 1 MVP trophy. That's what Caitlin Clark just did at the FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament in Puerto Rico, coming off an 8-month injury layoff. And somewhere, watching all of this happen, A'ja Wilson, the reigning WNBA MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, who was not even invited to Team USA's training camp, had a reaction that is genuinely jaw-dropping. So while Clark was rewriting the record books in Puerto Rico, Wilson was watching from the outside and throwing a very public tantrum. And it is about to get so much worse for Wilson. How jealous is A'ja Wilson of Caitlin Clark? Let me know in the comments. 8 months off the court does real damage to a player, not just physically. Your timing goes, your read on defenses gets slow, and your confidence in those split-second decisions just isn't there the way it was. Most players coming back from that kind of layoff are careful. They ease in, take their touches, try not to force anything. That's the smart play. That's what virtually every player in the history of the sport has done. Caitlin Clark came back and broke 5 world records in 19 minutes. Let us talk about the setup first. The FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament in Puerto Rico was international competition, not a preseason scrimmage, not a friendly. These were real games against real national teams, with real stakes. Clark was coming in 8 months removed from competitive basketball, and she was not even starting. Coach Kara Lawson had her coming off the bench for the first game against Senegal. On paper, that reads like a soft landing, with limited minutes, low pressure, and time to shake off the rust. That is how it was supposed to go. Senegal ran a full-court blitz press that was giving the starting unit serious problems. They could not handle the pressure. The offense was stalling, turnovers were piling up, and the team was playing tight. Then Clark checked in. Immediately, she started reading that press defense before it could even set. She pushed transition opportunities before the defense had a chance to recover, and she threw passes that forced defenders into decisions they were not prepared for. The starting unit was in survival mode against the same defense. Clark was turning into a fast break factory. In 19 minutes, she put up 17 points, 12 assists, and 0 turnovers. 0. Coming off the bench, coming off 8 months of rehab. Let that sit for a second. Those 12 assists did not just look good on a box score, they shattered multiple all-time FIBA records simultaneously. She broke the record for most assists ever in a Team USA senior national team debut. Not the women's record, but the all-time record, men or women, in USA basketball history. Then she broke the record for most assists in any senior national team debut across every country in FIBA history. Every country, every player, ever. And then she broke the all-time FIBA record for most assists by any bench player, men or women, across all of international basketball history. 3 assists records, 1 night, 19 minutes, off the bench. That's only 3 of the 5 records. She was touching categories of FIBA history that nobody had even thought to look at before that game. The crowd in Puerto Rico was reacting the way crowds react when they are watching something they do not yet have a frame for. There would be a pass, a half-second of silence, and then they would lose it. Because what she was doing did not look like a comeback. It did not look like someone finding her footing. It looked like someone who had been waiting 8 months to do exactly this, and now the gates were open. 5 games, 7 days, 14 world records, and 1 MVP trophy going to the youngest recipient in tournament history. Clark did not just perform well at this qualifying tournament, she systematically dismantled the record book across 5 straight games, adding to the total almost every single night. Assists records, debut records, bench player records, per-game efficiency marks that nobody had touched before. By the time the Spain game wrapped up, USA Basketball had a list of 14 separate all-time FIBA records, with Clark's name next to every one of them. She did all of that coming off 8 months of rehab on a compressed 7-day schedule against international competition. The MVP award on top of it was not a courtesy. She was the clear choice, and the youngest player ever to win this tournament's MVP. So that is the picture. 14 records, 5 wins, 1 trophy, the youngest MVP ever. Now, let's talk about who wasn't there. A'ja Wilson, 3-time WNBA MVP, Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most decorated active players in the game right now, was not at this tournament. She was not sitting at home with a wrapped ankle or dealing with some scheduling issue. She was not invited to Team USA training camp. That is it. USA Basketball looked at the roster, made their decisions, and Wilson's name was not on the list. And before anyone says maybe the whole team sat out, no. Breanna Stewart was invited. Napheesa Collier was invited. Both of them are Olympic gold medalists, both are active WNBA players, and both had to turn it down because of obligations tied to the WNBA collective bargaining agreement negotiations. They had a legitimate reason. Wilson had no public reason at all. So the basketball world started asking questions fast. Was this a roster philosophy shift? Did something happen between Wilson and USA basketball leadership? Nobody had a clean answer, but people were definitely connecting dots, especially given Wilson's very public behavior toward Clark over the past year. Then Wilson opened her mouth. After Clark was officially crowned FIBA MVP and all 14 records were confirmed, Wilson said that Clark was lucky I wasn't there. Read that back slowly. Clark breaks 14 world records, wins MVP as the youngest ever, goes 5-0. Does it coming off 8 months of sitting out. And Wilson's take is that Clark got lucky because Wilson was not in the building. Here is the thing though. Wilson was not kept out of the tournament. She was kept out of the training camp that happened before the tournament even started. USA Basketball made that call before a single game was played. So this was never about Clark being lucky. This was about Wilson not being selected in the first place. And the lucky I wasn't there framing only works if you believe Wilson would have somehow prevented 14 world records and the youngest MVP award in tournament history. That is a bold claim to make from your couch while someone else is literally rewriting the history books. Clark never responded. She did not have to. The lucky I wasn't there comment did not come out of nowhere. Wilson has been doing this since Clark's rookie season, and the pattern is pretty easy to trace at this point. When Clark signed her Nike deal as a rookie, Wilson did not just shrug and move on. She went on a month-long public run questioning Clark's stats, questioning whether the attention was deserved, and questioning essentially everything about Clark's impact on the game. Not one comment, not one interview. It was a sustained public campaign that ran alongside the shoe deal announcement, as if it were coordinated, and the timing was not subtle. Then Clark won Time Magazine Athlete of the Year. Wilson had something to say about that too. Then Clark began landing major speaking engagements and corporate sponsorship money at a level Wilson was not seeing, and Wilson had something to say about that as well. Every single time Clark gets recognized for something, Wilson shows up with a reaction. Every time. That is not frustration, that is a pattern. So now let us talk about what Nike is actually doing right now, because this is where it gets really uncomfortable for Wilson. Clark's signature shoe is coming, and Nike isn't treating this like a standard player release. They've reportedly restructured workspace environments around this project, put serious resources into premium prototype development, and are running a full marketing push with designer collaborations and major campaign presence across every channel they have. Nike is treating this shoe drop like a cultural event, not just a product launch. Wilson's shoe, meanwhile, is sitting in the bargain bin, and that's not a figure of speech. Discounted inventory, no active marketing, no campaign presence, nothing. Nike has basically taken the energy and resources that were going toward Wilson's line and pointed all of it directly at Clark instead. That's a business decision, and businesses don't make those decisions randomly. The sales numbers tell the whole story in 2 sentences. Clark's signature shoe is projected to sell out in minutes when it finally drops. Wilson's shoe has been available for months and still hasn't sold out. 2 data points, same sentence, and you instantly understand exactly where each of these players stands with the biggest sports brand on the planet. Forbes ranked Clark number 4 on their most powerful women in sports list. Time magazine gave her Athlete of the Year. Nike is building a headquarters-level project around her. None of that is coincidence. Those are companies and publications responding to TV ratings, audience numbers, and real market data. And the reason Wilson's shoe campaign is fading isn't some mystery. Companies pay attention to behavior. Wilson spent a year running a public campaign against the sport's biggest draw, built a reputation as one of the most toxic presences in the WNBA, and kept going after Clark every time Clark got recognition. Boardrooms noticed. Sponsors noticed. Nike definitely noticed. Clark is number 4 on Forbes' most powerful women in sports list, while Wilson's shoe is marked down on a clearance rack. That's not a coincidence, and it's not bad luck. That's the market telling you exactly what it thinks about how both of these players have carried themselves. So after Clark breaks 5 world records off the bench against Senegal, a reporter walks up to Kara Lawson in the post-game press conference and asks her directly about what Clark just did. Lawson's answer was essentially, everyone should shine, not just Caitlin. That was it. She would not even say Clark's name when talking about a performance that had just rewritten FIBA history. That clip got shared everywhere within hours because it did not sound like a coaching answer. It sounded like a deflection. You could actually see the tension playing out on the floor during that Puerto Rico game before the press conference even happened. Clark was not off. She was reading defenses fine. Her instincts were sharp. The problem was the system around her was running a slow, half-court offense that actively worked against everything she does well. Lawson's whole philosophy coming in was this democratic approach where no single player anchors the offense. Everyone shares the load equally. That sounds fine in a team meeting, but in practice it meant Clark was operating in a system built for a different pace entirely. And Clark's game runs on pace. Then Nate Tibbetts stepped in as head coach for the Italy game and made 3 decisions immediately. He started Clark. He put her alongside Paige Beckers and Kelsey Plum in a 3-guard lineup. And then, he just let them run. The Italy game looked nothing like what came before it. The spacing opened up right away, the ball was moving, and the pace was completely different, faster, cleaner, more purposeful. Clark was pushing transition before Italy's defense could even set. Beckers and Plum were filling lanes, and the whole offense had a flow to it that the previous games just did not have. Team USA won by 34 points. Afterward, Tibbetts said publicly that the prior approach had been a mistake. Coaches almost never say that. Getting up in a post-game press conference and saying the previous approach was a mistake is basically a public audit of your predecessor's decisions out loud, on the record, with cameras rolling. It validated every single thing fans and analysts had been saying since that Lawson press conference got clipped and shared across every platform. So New Zealand and Spain got the same blueprint. Clark starting, 3-guard lineup, fast pace, clean ball movement. By the Spain game, Clark finished with 7 points and 7 assists in 22 minutes, while Kalia Copper dropped 20 points leading the scoring. And that is exactly what is supposed to happen when a point guard is actually running the offense correctly. Clark does not need to be the leading scorer for the offense to be running through her. The 34-point Italy rout proved that. The Spain game proved it again. The everyone shines philosophy lasted exactly 1 coaching change before it got replaced by something that actually worked. 1 lineup adjustment, 1 decision to start Clark and let her push pace, and Team USA went from tension-filled press conferences to blowout wins. That is the blueprint Tibbetts handed to USA basketball for 2026, and it is built entirely around what Clark just proved she can do. Puerto Rico just changed the trajectory of 2 things at once: Team USA heading into Berlin 2026 and the Indiana Fever heading into next season. Because what Clark showed across those 5 games was not just a hot week, it was a blueprint. The 3-guard lineup with Clark, Paige Beckers, and Kelsey Plum is now the established foundation for how Team USA runs offense at the international level. That combination produced a 34-point blowout of Italy and a clean 5-0 run through the whole tournament, and the coaching staff has already pointed toward that being the direction going into Berlin 2026. You do not throw out a lineup that does that. You build around it. And for Fever fans, for everyone watching Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Sophie Cunningham, what just happened in Puerto Rico is basically a preview. A fully healthy Clark, in a system built around her playmaking, running the pace, and creating open looks for everyone around her. That is what the Fever offense can look like. The pieces are already there in Indiana. Aaliyah Boston cleaning up inside, Kelsey Mitchell attacking off the catch, Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham spacing the floor. Clark just needs a system that lets her do what she did in Puerto Rico, and that roster becomes very dangerous very fast. The question is whether the Fever coaching staff watches what Tibbetts figured out in real time and applies the same lesson before next season starts. So let's bring it all the way back to where we started. A'ja Wilson said Clark was lucky she was not there, but Wilson was not kept out of the tournament. She simply was not invited to the training camp. USA Basketball made that decision before a single game tipped off. Then Clark went out and broke 14 world records anyway, won the MVP as the youngest ever, and went 5-0 undefeated. Wilson's shoe has been sitting on shelves for months, marked down, with no marketing behind it. Clark's signature shoe has not even dropped yet, and it is already projected to sell out in minutes. Wilson was not there. Clark broke 14 world records without her. That is not luck. That is just the gap between where these two players actually stand right now. Do you think Wilson actually believes she would have changed anything in Puerto Rico, or is saying she was lucky she was not there just the only thing left to say when the record book stops being on your side? How jealous is A'ja Wilson of Caitlin Clark? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.